Today, we're going to dive into a truth that sounds, well, a little backwards, doesn't it? The idea that helping other people might actually be the single most powerful thing you can do for yourself. Yeah, we're going to unpack how the simple act of giving can really be the greatest gift you give to yourself.
So, let me just ask you this straight up. Do you think of yourself as an island? A solo act, making your way through the world all on your own? I mean, think about it. From the time we're kids, so many of us are sold this story of rugged individualism. We're taught that success, that strength, that's all stuff you have to build by yourself. That being completely self-reliant is the ultimate goal.
But what if that whole story is just plain wrong? What if it's based on a total misunderstanding of how we're actually built to operate? What if our real power comes not from standing alone, but from standing together? Okay, so let's dig into this. We're calling this first part the Great Illusion, because we're going to tackle this pervasive idea that we're all just separate little beings running around. Because here's the reality. We aren't islands, not at all. We're more like an archipelago, a whole chain of islands that look separate on the surface, but are all connected by the same ocean floor underneath. This feeling of being a separate me isn't the fundamental truth. It's a story we've learned. The deeper truth is that we are all completely interdependent, right down to our very biology.
And what's so fascinating about this is that it's not some new, trendy concept. Not by a long shot. This is where ancient wisdom and modern science are actually shaking hands and agreeing on the same exact thing.
For example, let's look at the African concept of Ubuntu. It's this incredible philosophy built around a simple, powerful idea. I am because we are. It basically says that your humanity, your very personhood, isn't something you have on your own. It's something you achieve through your connections and your care for other people. Who you are is a collective thing.
And guess what? Modern neuroscience is totally catching up to this. It turns out our brains are literally physically built for connection. We've got these things called mirror neurons that make us feel what others are feeling, wiring us for empathy. Our emotional centers can literally sync up with someone else's. So connection, it isn't just a nice-to-have social thing. It's a biological need.
Okay, so if we're all wired for connection, what happens when we actually act like it? This is where things get really amazing. Let's get into how helping other people is, in a very real way, a form of self-healing.
But first, to really get why this matters, let's look at the dark side for a second. The stakes are, well, they're incredibly high. Research has shown that being lonely and socially isolated is just as bad for your physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. 15. Disconnection is literally toxic to our body.
Now for the good news. The flip side is just as powerful. When you do something kind for someone else, your brain hits you with this amazing cocktail of feel-good chemicals. Dopamine, oxytocin, the whole shebang. It's a real, scientifically measurable thing called the helper's high. And the result? You feel less stressed, your mood improves, and you get this genuine sense of well-being. And we're not just talking about a quick buzz here. When helping becomes a consistent practice, it acts like a powerful medicine. It's been linked to lower rates of depression, better physical health, and you might even live longer. For so many people, it brings back a sense of purpose that can be the anchor for huge personal change.
But, and this is a really big but, it's not as simple as just giving and giving until you have nothing left. This whole path has some serious traps if you're not careful. Real, lasting compassion, well, that takes wisdom and some really healthy boundaries.
So here's a super critical distinction you have to make. Are you empowering someone, helping them find their own strength and walk their own path, or are you enabling them? Doing things for them that they could and should be doing for themselves, which just makes them more dependent. Real help builds people up. It doesn't create a crutch.
And we also have to be brutally honest with ourselves about why we're helping. Are you giving from an empty tank, playing the martyr and heading straight for burnout? Or is your help really about your ego, about being seen as a good person, or maybe even about running away from your own problems? These are the shadow sides of giving that we really have to watch out for.
So it all boils down to this one single question you gotta ask yourself again and again. Am I giving from a full cup, from a place of wholeness, or am I giving from an empty cup because I need something back? The answer to that question changes absolutely everything.
All right, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually live this way?
Let's break this big idea down into simple, real things you can start doing, like today.
Look, this doesn't have to be some huge, dramatic gesture. It really starts with small things. You can work on it internally with something like a loving kindness meditation. You can practice deep listening, like really listening to someone without just waiting for your turn to talk. Or you can do one small random act of kindness for someone and not tell a soul about it. These little shifts make a huge difference.
Because in the end, this whole thing isn't about you becoming some kind of savior who's going to fix the world. It's just about remembering this beautiful and simple truth from Ram Dass. We're all just walking each other home. That's it. We're all on the same journey, just trying to find our way.
So as we wrap this up, the invitation here isn't to go solve all the world's problems. It's just to start. So think about it for a second. What's one small door to connection, just one, that you're willing to open today?